are stories that connect us to ourselves and each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid, wild colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. And now, exclusively on KGRA Radio, I give you your host for Soul Wanderings Radio. Here's AJ.
Happy day, friend. It's Soul Wanderings Night, where we receive an opportunity to hear journey stories from humans from all walks of life, all types of experiences. These humans show up to share authentic pieces of themselves with all of us. I am AJ Rasmussen, your host. Hello, hello. I am so very pleased with the time I get to be here with all of you as we discuss topics relating to our experiences with being human, a spiritual being living in this anomalous universe. So, hey, thanks for being here and hanging out with us tonight. If you are interested, there are ways that you can participate during the show. If you are listening live with us, we have the chat room to play in. The chat is hosted here on KGRAradio.com. You will want to log in if you want to chat with other listeners during the show, or perhaps ask some questions for our guest. That's the place to do it. Again, that's KGRAradio.com. Click on the chat room and you'll find us there. And let's just get to it, Wanderers. Let's just begin our wandering right away. Tonight we are going to introduce our amazing guest, Rebecca Thompson. She is an experienced speaker, writer, consultant, facilitator, and coach with more than 30 years in the manufacturing, aerospace, and healthcare industries. She has been an internal and an external consultant for many years, working with such companies as Eastman Kodak, General Motors, and Blue Cross Blue Shield, North Carolina, mostly in the fields of leadership and team development, work systems redesign, organizational change, and culture change. Currently, she is the principal of Evolve Without Limits, a coaching and consulting practice. But that is only part of her story. The rest is a chronicle of personal courage and spiritual expansion that defies conventional wisdom. From an engineer skeptic, she made a fascinating right turn. Frustrated by her now ex-husband increasing alcoholism, Rebecca embarked on a healing journey which led her to explore a variety of spiritual practices. She learned how to love herself and found freedom from a situation in which she thought she was stuck. Along the way, she also became a Reiki master, a certified crystal therapist, and a shamanic coach, and incorporates these areas of expertise into her consulting and coaching practice. But it's in her talks with the moon that will amaze you. And you know I'm a moon girl. I'm going to love this conversation. Rebecca tells the story in her new book, Rebecca Rising, How I Found Courage and Self-Love Through Friendship, Coaching, and Conversations with the Moon, a memoir chronicling her healing journey. In addition, she and her friend and colleague, Darlene Ryan, co-authored Sunday at 8:30, 2 Decades of Life Planning. That book shares the life planning process Darlene and Rebecca personally use and honed for over 20 years and includes helpful worksheets for creating your own life plan. She's passionate about helping people to learn about self-love, to recognize their own strength, and to live with freedom, passion, and intention. That's my kind of girl. Mm-hmm. Hello, Rebecca. Welcome to Soul Wanderings.
Hi, AJ. Thank you for having me as your guest. I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. You are so new into my awareness. I cannot wait to get to know all about you. And that's exactly where I like to begin. In your words, I've explained so much about you already, but in your lovely words, tell us about yourself. Who's Rebecca?
Sure. So thank you, first of all, for that kind introduction. I appreciate that greatly. And I'll just, give you a little bit of background. I was a small town girl and grew up in Western Pennsylvania and didn't have any background whatsoever in anything metaphysical. Just kind of a very ordinary Pennsylvania girl, and went off to school, went off to college at Penn State, where I majored in industrial engineering. And I met and then married my college boyfriend, and we both moved to Rochester, New York, where we got jobs as engineers. And eventually he started his own business, and we bought a house and started a family and literally put up a white picket fence, and life was going along fine and kind of living the American dream until all of a sudden it wasn't. And his business started to fail. The economy had taken kind of a downturn at that point, and so his business was failing, and he began to drink heavily, and his clients weren't paying, and we weren't paying our bills, and he ended up having to close his business, and he got a job, and then another. He had 2 DUIs, and we ended up moving to a new state, and everything just seemed to be kind of spiraling out of control. So that was kind of the situation I found myself in, even though I was continuing to maintain my own career and I was managing the household and raising our kids. But at that point in my, I'd say, increasing unhappiness and frustration, I started on what I later saw as a spiritual journey, although at that time I just didn't even have the language for that at the time. So what I viewed it as, we had moved to a new state, and I was just trying to meet some people and get to know my new community and get involved and just, start to recreate my life, having moved, from Rochester, New York to Raleigh, North Carolina. It was a pretty significant move for us. Yeah. So
what was that like, though, when you were forced to leave an experience that you were familiar with to begin new, having that type of baggage come along with you?
It was really hard, AJ. I would have to say that was one of the hardest times in my life, and my kids were teenagers and preteen, and it was a very hard time to move kids, away from their friends and all of that. And so it was a pretty stressful and unhappy time, and also trying to, I was hopeful too at the same time. I mean, here we were in a new city, a new life, and I had hoped that my now ex, that would be a new beginning. He had a new job and we're in a new place, and it was going to be a fresh start for all of us. So I was very, very hopeful. At the same time, I was trying to keep secrets. Alcoholism is a disease of secrets, and trying to put up a normal face, right? Trying to keep things as normal as possible for the kids, and not wanting the neighbors to know, that there's any problems in your home and your kids' parents, kids' friends' parents and all that. And so just trying to keep things as normal as possible. So it's pretty stressful. I think of that time as just really trying to keep all the balls in the air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot like juggling, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm familiar with the disease for sure, working with a lot of recovering addicts myself and growing up in environments where that was around. And it does become not only their sickness, but your sickness as well when you're not aware how much you are, picking up the slack for them or covering up for them, even, jeopardizing your own integrity.
Yes, I found that to be very true, AJ. It took me a while. Al-Anon, the organization Al-Anon, became a part of my journey, which of course is an organization that supports people who are concerned about someone else's drinking. And people kept telling me, you should go to Al-Anon. And it was kind of like being fixed up on a blind date. I was kind of resistant and didn't really want to go. And I kept saying, he should go to AA. I shouldn't have to do anything. There's nothing wrong with me. And then I finally went, and then I realized, just as you say, it certainly had impacted me and my behavior, and always trying to solve everybody else's problems and keeping track of how much he was drinking and trying to keep him from drinking and all of those things. And, I was kind of a mess.
Yeah, it's very exhausting.
Yeah.
Definitely. Tell me more about your experience with Al-Anon. We don't get to hear about that much.
Oh, sure. So, as I said, it's an organization that supports people who are concerned about someone else's drinking. And when I first went, I thought that I was going to learn how to fix my alcoholic, right? How to get him to stop drinking, how to get him to go to AA. And that's what I thought it was about. And I found out that it is very far from that. It's about looking at yourself and trying to be the best person that you can be and detaching from what your alcoholic is doing. And they have a saying that, what your alcoholic is doing is none of your business. It's there's nothing you can do. You didn't cause this. You can't change it. You can't control it. So you just really need to focus on what you can control. And they use the serenity prayer, help me to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I can and the wisdom to know the difference. And that's really what it's all about. And so detaching from those things and stop counting the beer cans in the trash. Don't worry about that. Worry about you and who do you want to be and how can you be your best self? And that really was what my spiritual journey ultimately was all about as well.
That lifestyle is so exhausting. At what part of your journey did you make a transition to focus more so on yourself and your self-healing?
Yeah, it was very gradual, AJ. I would say, I got exposed to some different beliefs. As I said, I was brought up in the Presbyterian church and, nothing wrong with that, but I just was never exposed to anything metaphysical. And so I started taking some different classes. Like I was invited to a Reiki class and I was invited to a dowsing class. And then I started from there taking classes about crystals and all different kinds of things. And it really opened me up to a new way of thinking and that different beliefs were possible, that there were more truths out there than I had been aware of. So it started to shift how I thought about myself, how I thought about the divine, so many things. And so gradually, and then it kind of a huge turning point, as you mentioned in your introduction, my conversations with the moon, that was a big turning point for me.
That we're going to get to, no doubt about it.
Okay.
There's just something incredible about those conversations, right?
Absolutely.
We do have a question in the chat room. They're curious with Al-Anon, do they follow the 12 steps as well?
Yes, they actually do. And the Al-Anon group that I went to, we would read the 12 steps at the beginning of every meeting. I really liked the beginning of the meetings. There was always a reading, and we would read the 12 steps and, say the Serenity Prayer. It was almost like a, kind of a structured, almost like a service, a church. I'm a church girl. I like church. And, even though I don't attend a Protestant church anymore, I like that. I like that structure and ritual. There was like a ritual to it. That I liked, and it was very soothing to me. And it was kind of funny because actually there were people who came late to the meeting on purpose because they didn't like that and they wanted to get to the part where people just chatted about issues in their life and their challenges and that kind of thing, which, that's a very powerful part of the meeting as well. But personally, I really like that ritual. But yes, we definitely did follow the 12 steps, and you can have sponsors in Al-Anon just like they do in AA.
Oh, that's really great. I have not been to an Al-Anon gathering before, but I've heard amazing things about them, and what an awesome way for you to start the process of your healing. Once you started doing that, how did your relationship shift with your ex-husband, your husband at the time?
Yeah, I started to be less concerned with what he was doing. I really started to not only detach from his behavior, but ultimately I detached from him because they became indistinguishable. And there other people, there's no judgment in Al-Anon, and some people stay with their spouses and some people do not. And whatever works for you, as long as you can make the best life for yourself that you can, there's no judgment about that. And ultimately I did separate but I think it just learning to not be so worried about what he's doing, and also to not worry so much about what he thought of me. Like I was always worried about, oh, he's going to get mad if I go out to this meeting or if I take this class at night and I'm not home. And, I started to just live my own life and not worry so much about that.
Well, that's good that you had the opportunity to do that and not worry about it. I've heard so many stories where, there's a lot of control going on in those situations where going out to a class or Al-Anon or something would cause great turmoil in the relationship.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah. I did experience that where he would say to me, why don't you just stay home? I'd rather you be at home, and I had to just learn that I needed to do things my way.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't easy.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Of course not. It would be very challenging, especially when your version of being committed in the relationship was so different than his at the time, and you still having the courage to speak up for yourself and do what you felt was best for you.
Yes. And again, it took a really long time to get to that point, and I had the benefit of really good friends and organizations such as Al-Anon. So I'm just really grateful for all the support that I did have. And, I in my book, I talk about my good friend Darlene, who's also the co-author of my other book. And we would talk every week on the phone, and, I would share with her some of the things that were going on. And she'd say, well, have you talked to him about it? And I'd be, no, I'm afraid. I'm afraid he'll get mad. I'm afraid of what he'll do. And she'd say, well, then why don't you journal about it, and keep track of all the times that you wish that you said something and you didn't. And that'll at least start to give you some data, about what's going on in your relationship and what you wish was going on.
When you see someone in that type of relationship, you're outside of the experience that they're having. You always wonder, why are they staying in it? Why are they trying to make it work, and why don't they just leave? Did you have people ask you those kinds of questions?
Many, many times, AJ.
And what made you stay? What made you fight for that?
Yeah. Well, there were a lot of things. I think my original belief systems of I was taught that you get married for life and that you stand by your man no matter what. And I mean, to this day, my mother really doesn't approve of the fact that I got divorced, and she doesn't understand it. So I think that was part of it. I think that we kept having fresh starts, and I thought things were going to get better. So maybe you could call that denial, or you could call it optimism, but I think there was hope, there was still hope that things would change. I think another factor is that I was trying to keep things as normal as possible for my kids, and I was trying to not break up our family. Although, looking back, I mean, they knew what was going on. So, in fact, my oldest daughter has said, I wish you would have done it 10 years earlier. But, at the time, I was just doing the best I could. I think another big reason, AJ, is that I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. And I had never lived alone. We got married right out of college, and I just didn't know if I could make it on my own, financially or otherwise. And so I think there was a lot of fear that I could even make it on my own. And friends of mine who were saying to me, why don't you just leave, later said, after my one friend said she was so frustrated with me because I would say, I don't know if I can make it on my own. And she said, you're already doing everything. You're already running the house and managing your career and raising the kids and paying the bills. So what makes you think you couldn't do that without him?
Very good question.
But at the time I was in the middle of it and I just didn't see it. I just was living in fear and limiting beliefs. I had a lot of limiting beliefs, I would say.
When did the shift take place for you where you decided enough was enough and I can do this on my own?
Again, I think it was pretty gradual, but I think one big turning point was the moon conversation. So if you want, I could get into that a little bit. I was kind of hit over the head by the universe in that we were facing yet another decision about moving to yet another state. We had already moved from Rochester, New York to Raleigh, North Carolina, and a few years he'd lost several jobs and gotten different jobs and was once again facing a move out of state, now this time to South Carolina. And at this point I was thinking, I don't think I should go with this guy. This is not good. And why would I give up my life, my support systems that I've built up here from scratch, and, he'd probably just have the same thing happen again in a year or two. So I had that whole conversation going on in my head. And on the other side, I still had these beliefs of, well, you're supposed to be a good wife, and be married for life and all those things. So I was in this period of turmoil. And one night, my dog woke me up in the night, and which was not very typical. She was a pretty good sleeper, but it's like, all right, you got to go out. So we went outside, and there was one of those low in the sky, huge, gigantic full moons. And I don't know how to describe it other than it was like it was talking to me. I heard this voice in my head, and I thought it was crazy because I'd never been exposed to anything like that. But what she said was, "You're missing the point." And I thought, what? What do you mean? And she went on to say, "You're missing the point. It's not about where you're going to live and what nice suburb you're going to live in. It's about who do you want to be and how do you want to feel." And that was a huge, huge turning point for me, because I had actually never thought about how I wanted to feel, or even thought that my feelings were important. I was thinking about what I should do, what will my mother think? What will my husband think? What will my kids think? And,
right.
And just taught, to what should I do?
We're so good at doing that, aren't we?
Right. Yeah.
Worrying about what everyone else is going to think about our life, about the choices we make.
Yes. And so I was trying to logic my way through it. What are the pros and cons and all of these things, and the moon, which I came to see as goddess Diana, goddess of the moon, or Artemis, as some will call her. I came to see that, she told me to follow my own heart. She told me to slow down. I was kind of addicted to busyness and just keeping myself busy, working and raising kids and paying bills and not thinking about what I wanted ever. And to slow down, start taking care of myself, listen to my heart. And it was a completely, it sounds obvious now to me. It's like, of course you would do those things. That's what I teach other people to do. But at the time, it was a huge, huge shift for me. And I started to listen to those messages and continued having those conversations over a period of months.
Well, it was your experience at the time. You can look back and say, oh, I should have seen that, or I should have done that. And we're so good at shitting all over ourselves that we're just really good at it. But once you get on the other side of that fear, you're able to see the bigger picture. There's no doubt about that. But I find that in our journey, when people start asking us questions, or our guides, or whatever that looks like, or Goddess Diana in your case, when they start asking you the questions that you haven't even stopped to ask yourself, they become these really profound moments for you to have some huge growth, right?
That is so true. That is so true. Yeah, it just was beyond anything.
Digging deeper. Yeah, digging deeper. Like, what is it that I want? How do I feel? And that busyness is such a distraction. We do it. We just do that as humans, so we don't have to deal with, the deep stuff, the real stuff, the stuff that is going to shift our perspective and our experience completely.
Yes.
I love that you were able to have those conversations, and I do want to hear more about them, and we will continue to hear about your journey on the other side of this break. So stay close, everyone. We'll be right back.
everybody, Rachel Ray here. Nothing brings a bigger smile to my face than cooking up a big meal for the whole family and lots of friends. But there's not enough room at my table for the 17 million kids in our country who struggle with hunger. That's why the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks collects surplus food to give hope to hungry kids. But they can't do it without your help. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Saucer is the leading innovator of original and authentic UFO-inspired essentials and apparel, symbolizing self-enrichment and advancement. Believe in style and elevate your craft at thesaucerbrand.com.
Please listen. Now is not the time to fear. When your immune system is strong, shields up. You have very little worries. If your immune system is compromised, you're susceptible to all viruses. I say shields up and no fear. Try Heart Love from GetTheTea.com. Heart Love has a special ingredient called allicin. It comes from the healing part of the garlic plant. No garlic breath. No garlic leaking out your pores, just pure immune-building ingredients that gets your shields up. Heart Love is a unique blend of herbs that loves to build you up. Google garlic and know the benefits. One Heart Love pill is equal to 20 cloves of garlic. 20 cloves! Shields up. You've heard of our Life Change Cleansing Tea at GetTheTea.com. Now try Heart Love. And by the way, take your blood pressure and watch weekly what happens. So here's how to purchase. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com and build your shields. That's GetTheTea.com. Mention Ray in the coupon code and hit apply and receive free shipping.
Find the podcast on iTunes, iHeart, and Spotify. KGRARadio.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Soul Wanderings here on KGRARadio.com. I'm AJ Rasmussen, your host, and tonight we are visiting with our guest, Rebecca Thompson, and she is the author of Rebecca Rising, How I Found Courage and Self-Love Through Friendship, Coaching, and Conversations with the Moon, a memoir chronicling her healing journey. Of course, I had to have you on the show. As soon as I heard your story and that you have conversations with the moon, I knew you were a soul sister. So I'm so happy to have you here with us, Rebecca.
Thank you, AJ. I'm so glad to be here. And yes, I'm a moon girl now.
What was that?
I'm a moon girl now.
Yay. I love that moon energy. It's good stuff. Before the break, we were getting into just that, about your conversations with the moon. And I know you had just barely begun to share with us that you were questioned. You got asked questions from Goddess Diana about you, about what do you want and what feels good for you. Yeah, so you being more, I'm assuming at the time, because you were in the engineer corporate world, that must have been kind of off or kind of strange for you. Did you just trust what you were getting, what you were receiving from that type of energy? Or were you questioning it? What was that like for you?
I was questioning it to some extent, AJ. I had been at that time, I had opened myself up quite a bit. I'd been going to Reiki. I became a Reiki master and was studying crystal therapy and all kinds of things. So I had opened up quite a bit, but I'd never had an experience such as this. And I did think I was a little crazy, and I wasn't sure who I could tell. I wanted somebody that I could talk to about this. And I met someone. Meanwhile, in my career, I had this corporate career that I'm still maintaining. And I had these two parts of myself that I didn't think could ever meet. I had this piece that was, in the corporate world. I was an engineer, and then I went into the field of organizational development, which is all about team building and leadership development. And at the same time, I was going down this metaphysical path, and I didn't think I could really talk about that with a lot of the friends that I had. I didn't think they would accept it or understand, or I didn't want to make them uncomfortable. So I was keeping a lot to myself. I have since learned to marry the different parts of myself and integrate them. So that's, I can talk more about that later. But at that time, I was keeping things pretty separate, but I was feeling uncomfortable because I didn't think I could talk about it to anyone. But I was taking a coaching program to learn how to become a coach, a life coach, an executive coach. And I met this woman who was so interesting in my coaching program, and she's a practicing witch, and she's a professor of medieval history and literature, and she's also a recovering alcoholic, so she could kind of help me with those kinds of issues. And she just had so many different points of view than I had ever been exposed to. And so I told her about what was happening, that I was having these conversations with the moon, and I thought I might be a little crazy. And she said, it sounds to me like it's the goddess Diana reaching out to you. And she said, because, you're talking to the moon. And she said, she's also working through your dogs. And she's also the goddess of the hunt. And often in images of her, she's depicted with dogs. So that was just top of mind for her, which to me was just so out there, But I've since learned that there are so many ways to approach the divine. Right? There are so many ways we can connect, whether it's through spirit animals, spirit guides, higher power, your Jesus or Mary or Kuan Yin, whatever, the traditional ways, non-traditional ways. And this is just one more way, whether it's through nature, connecting with trees or the ocean. And in this case, the moon reached out to me. Mm-hmm. And so I kept having these conversations, and it was nice then to have a name for her, that it was Diana now, just, more so than just the moon itself. And we kept having these conversations, and I learned so much, and it just was very comforting to me. She kept saying, you're on the right track. So she was trying to validate me a lot, which I needed at that time. I didn't have a lot of confidence, and so she was validating me. And I already mentioned this whole piece about slowing down and not being so addicted to being busy. And one incident that happened to me was I accidentally deleted my entire inbox of my email. I didn't mean to do that, but it turned out to be very freeing, right? Because all of a sudden, instead of having 1,000 emails in there, there's 0. And at first I panicked a little bit, but anything that was important came back, and it just was very freeing. All that junk was gone, weighing me down. And anybody who has email knows what I'm talking about,
Definitely.
And so then there's a whole piece about loving myself and practicing good self-care. And, you hear the phrase love yourself, and I didn't even know what that meant at the time. I was in no way practicing loving myself. I didn't even know what that meant. And so if there are people out there that are also struggling with that concept, I would say to them, it's baby steps. It's learning to take care of yourself and sometimes to put your needs first. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned, I was focused on being a good mom and being a good wife, being a good daughter, being a good employee, and all of those things are important, but you can't pour from an empty cup. Right? If you're giving everything you've got to everybody else, there's nothing left for you, and eventually you'll burn out. It's kind of like the old, when they talk about on the airplane, putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. You've got to do that, or you won't be fit to help someone else. So baby steps, take a hot bath, light a candle, take a walk, whatever it is, take 10 minutes to meditate, whatever you can start doing to take time for yourself is going to help you to show love for yourself. And I think that's just critically important.
Right. And it is baby steps, literally. Like people will say, I don't have time or I can't afford it or whatever that looks like. But you don't have to have money, and everyone has 5 or 10 minutes to give to themselves.
Exactly. It's little things, even doing a couple of yoga moves for 5 minutes in the morning, things like that. Yes, there's lots of things you can do in 5 minutes. And another thing that Diana told me was don't go it alone. So rely on your friends, your support systems, your family, coaches, anybody that you have that you can confide in, that can be a support to you. So finding your supportive community, and even if it's going on Meetup. And I did a lot of that when I was starting on my metaphysical journey and just trying to find classes and other people who were interested in the same things and were like-minded. I didn't know those people. So I went to Meetup and found different groups. I'd try one, it didn't resonate with me, I wouldn't go back. But then I'd find one that did, and I'd keep going back. So finding your supportive community, all of those things.
That is so important. Wouldn't you agree? That one of the biggest steps to, working on your healing is finding your tribe, finding the people who are going to support you. Yes,
absolutely. And that can change from time to time, and that's okay. Sometimes you outgrow a group and you move on, but the right people will come.
Definitely.
And I think learning to say no was an important lesson for me too. Again, I was always trying to meet everybody else's needs and be a good person and be nice, and sometimes you just have to say no when your needs are more important.
Yes.
And that's hard. That's hard for a lot of us.
You're absolutely right. It is, because especially the ones who are pleasers and givers and want everyone around them to be happy. Learning to say no can be a huge challenge, but it's so completely freeing.
Oh, so true. And another thing that I learned was I didn't have to wait for the moon to wake me up in the night. So I thought, I was just waiting for this to happen to me, and it would happen every few days, over a period of months. And it was always middle of the night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I remember one night walking the dogs before I went to bed and looking up and seeing the moon and saying, Diana, is there anything you want to say to me now so that I don't have to get up in the middle of the night? And she said, you can talk to me anytime. You don't have to wait for me to do this. And that was a revelation as well. I thought I have to wait to be called, but you don't. You can approach the divine anytime that you choose. And that was an important lesson for me.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. So good. We think that everything has to be put in a box. So that's profound when you say, hey, you can reach out anytime. It doesn't have to look or be a certain way.
Exactly. You don't have to, wait for the call, right? You can, and because we're all connected to the divine. We are divine anyway, right? So it's just a matter of tuning in, connecting.
Yeah, remembering who you are and your purpose, connecting to your true essence.
Yes, exactly.
So you continue to have these conversations with Diana. Was she the one that prompted you to share your story, to write a book and tell the world about your experience? Or is that something that came to you through your other experiences you were having through Reiki and crystal healing and things like that?
Yeah, it really came about through some of my other experiences, AJ. I as I mentioned earlier, I have this friend, Darlene Ryan, who is from my early career. We were both young engineers together and young moms together, and so we've been friends for 30 plus years. And we started talking about writing a book together, and we'd been working on this life planning process for many years. We'd gone to a class in life planning years ago, and it was intended, it was called the High Achievers process, and it was intended, our work sent us, and it was all about being more productive, right, and getting more done at work. But as we took this class and then started applying it in our lives, we realized that it was about much more than that. It was about being intentional with the kind of life you want to create. And so we really took it to heart and started applying it to all areas of our life beyond work. And we continued to use this process and make it our own. We really adapted it far beyond what the original process was and made it our own. And we've been using it for over 20 years. And we started telling people about it, and people would say, wow, you guys ought to write a book about that, because the fact that you've even done the same process for 20 years is kind of amazing that you've stuck with it. And I remember one of the things that we do together is we read books together, and we choose about a dozen books every year. And we each read books on our own too, but we always select about a dozen books that we're going to read together, and then we discuss them. And we were discussing one of our books one day, and Darlene's daughter came in and she said, when are you two going to stop reading books and start writing one? And we laughed, we thought that was funny. But then as we thought about it, it was kind of like, well, why not? Maybe we should. So we started writing the other book, Sunday at 8:30, and we actually started it quite a while ago. And, life happens and you don't get much done, and we were each trying to write a chapter. It took a while to kind of get our act together in terms of the process. But one of the things Darlene said to me was, I'd love it if you would write about your spiritual journey as a chapter for our book. And funny thing about Darlene is that she's a Roman Catholic, and she also had no background in the metaphysical, and some of the things that I was starting to do made her a little uncomfortable. And she was supportive of me and, loves me and doesn't judge me, but she also was just a little freaked out about some of the things I was doing with Reiki and crystals. Just, she didn't understand it. Had never been exposed to it. So I think, honestly, that she suggested writing about it because she wanted to read it. She wanted to find out what was going on in my head. The book is, we look at 7 different areas of life, and one of them is spiritual. And so I said, yes, I would write a chapter about the spiritual aspect of our life planning process, and then some examples from my own life. And I started writing it, and I got back to her and I said, I think this is way more than a chapter. I think this is going to be a book. And she said, hey, go for it. Go for it. And so that's really how I started writing Rebecca Rising. And I went to a writing workshop, and at the beginning I thought it was just about strictly the spiritual journey, in that I'd gone to a Reiki class and I'd gone to a dowsing class, and then I went to a crystal class, sort of documenting all those different things and what I had learned about these different modalities. So that's what I started writing about. And the coach at the writing workshop said to me, she read my work and she said, this is all well and good, but what I want to know is why? I said, what do you mean? She said, why were you doing all this stuff? It just sounds like you're just sort of randomly going to all these classes. And so I had to think about that. And what I realized was, as I've told you tonight, that it was about finding my courage and my power and my strength to be able to leave my alcoholic marriage. And so it was just all about the spiritual journey of my narrow belief system, and really opening that up and broadening that and finding out who I was and caring about myself. Those were all my whys. And so I started to incorporate that, and that's really when it became the book. And, I didn't know if it was going to go anywhere, but different people read it and said, there's a lot of people in that situation of whether it's alcoholism or not, but feeling stuck, just feeling powerless and feeling stuck. And I thought, if I could help anyone by putting this story out there, then it will be worth it. That's something I want to do.
So that was the purpose in writing your book, is you were wanting to assist other people?
Yes, absolutely. And it's kind of scary putting stuff out there. And I
was going to say, especially with what's in your book, there's a lot of personal things that you share.
Yes, there are a lot of personal things, and my children were concerned about what I was writing.
I was just about to ask, how did your kids and your mom feel about you putting this all out into the world?
Yeah, they were very nervous about it, and yet at the same time they didn't want to talk about it. And I offered them drafts. I said, here, I've got a rough draft. You can read it. I'd like to know how you feel about it. I'd like to know if this coincides with how you remember things. I'd like to add your perspective. And nobody wanted to read it. I think they were afraid. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to push it, And then I ended up, had Darlene read it and a couple of other friends read it. And I did make some adjustments. And of course, I had this coach that I had met at this conference, writing workshop, that was also giving me some advice. And so I put it out there, and I found out that all three of my children bought it covertly, which I would have admitted to them. But
they did it down low, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of funny. But they've been so supportive. They've been so sweet and so supportive all along from the time, I decided to end the marriage through this time, that I've put out the book. And I intentionally didn't put in a lot about my kids. I mean, their characters and things were, they were part of my life, but they were teenagers at the time of the primary events of the book, and so we had lots of angst, and there's lots of stories I could have told, but that's not my story. I didn't want it to be about that, and I didn't want to embarrass them in any way, and I didn't want to, tell things that I didn't want to hurt our relationship in any way. So I really focused it about ending the marriage, finding the strength and power to do that, and why I needed to do that, and then the spiritual support that I received and how I progressed and grew.
Yeah. How was that when you were writing the book, to go back in time and really relive those moments that you shared in the book?
Yeah, it was sometimes hard. It was painful, and I will say embarrassing at times to think of what I put up with and how long I put up with it. And one of the things I have done for years is journal. I kept a journal for many years, and I mentioned earlier that Darlene has suggested to me, why don't you journal when you're frustrated with your husband, and what you'd like to say to him that you don't feel you could say. And so I was doing that. I was documenting all of that stuff and all the incidents that occurred. And I one day I started reading through some old journals. And that was another thing that led to writing the book too. I got this strange desire, probably divinely inspired, to start typing up some of my old journals. It just sort of randomly out of the blue. I just started doing that. And so I was reading journals from 4 years before, and this was while I was still married, but it was very close to the end. I started reading journals from 4 years before, and I was having the same conversations with him, and the same things were occurring, and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to be doing this 4 years from now and reading these same things. And that was, I think, another huge turning point that led to my ending the marriage.
Yeah, one of your aha moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a question in the chat room. Did it bother you looking back, seeing how naive you were and how clouded your sight was at that time?
Yes, I would say that's one reason why I say it's a little embarrassing, to go back and look, because people were saying, why don't you just leave? And, it took me so long. But you said yourself, AJ, is kind of like, that's where I was, that's where I was in my life. That's where I was in my spiritual journey. And
you just don't know until you know.
Yeah. And you can't follow someone else's timing. I think, that's another thing, is you just have to do these things in your own time and in your own way, and when you're ready. And I definitely knew when I was ready. People kept saying I should leave, and I kept saying, no, not yet, not ready, can't do it. And then when I was ready, I was ready. I went to see a lawyer, and I did it.
Well, yay for being on the other side of that fear. That is really wonderful.
Thank you.
I know it takes so much courage when, I was never married to an alcoholic, but there are different types of personalities that are very toxic, and having, like, you analyze in your head that things are going to change and things are going to get better, and you justify it one way or another, and you really believe that it's going to be okay. And then finally you get to a point where you're like, nope, it's not going to change. I have to change. Like, I have to change this experience.
Yes.
The power has to come from within me. And it said, like you said, it was baby steps. I feel like that, we, like I said, when you know, and you'll get there when you're ready to get there. It's just like the alcoholic themselves. You hit your rock bottom.
Yes.
At some point, you're going to hit your rock bottom and you're going to do something different, because the story is getting old on replay.
That is so true. I didn't even think of it like that myself, AJ, but that is so true.
Well, it's amazing. We have all this magnificence inside of us. It's just waiting to be let out and explored and celebrated. And I love that you got to that point that you were able to do that, and now write a book where you can encourage and inspire others to do the same for themselves. It's really awesome.
Thank you.
And what was your favorite out of the whole experience? Do you have like a moment where you had, like, this book is obviously for you, it's part of your healing experience, but at what point did you think this book is going to change some lives? Like, I just know without a doubt this is going to influence someone out there.
Yeah, I had a lot, it was so interesting to me that right after I put it out there, and I announced it to my Facebook friends, right? And a lot of my college friends immediately bought it and read it. I was so surprised. I don't know. I've been in touch with them on Facebook, but not kept in touch with them intimately, so didn't know what was going on. But they were people who knew both me and my ex-husband in college, so I think they were intrigued and rushed right out and bought it. But a lot of them, well, there was a mix of things. I'd say there were kind of three types of people. There was a type of person who was in a similar situation that was like, wow, this, I've been going through something very similar. This is so helpful. Thank you so much. And it helps to know someone else is on the other side. So that was very gratifying in affirming that someone could be helped by this story. And then there was another second type, I would say. It was people who felt bad. They were saying, oh my gosh, I had no idea you were going through all this. And I feel so bad. I feel like a bad friend, that you were going through all this. And, I would explain to them, alcoholism is a disease of secrets, and you're working very hard to make things normal for your kids and to have things look normal to people who are on the outside looking in. So it wasn't something that I did tell very many people about. I had a few close friends that knew what was going on, but very few. And so I didn't want anyone to feel bad that they, weren't aware of what was going on in my life during that time. And then I've had a third group that is also on a spiritual journey. And I had someone call me just a few weeks ago that I had not talked to for 35 years. And we were very good friends in college. And I had seen through Facebook that she's been to Tibet and she's been on a spiritual journey of her own. She's a breast cancer survivor. But she wanted to talk to me about some of my beliefs and some of the teachers I've had and some of the things I've done. And we spent a couple hours one Saturday morning just a few weeks ago just sharing, kind of the experiences we've gone through. And so that's kind of the third group of people that are also on a spiritual journey and just kind of want to compare notes and reconnect. So it's been very, very exciting to have this opportunity to share the story and reconnect with people and meet new people. I'm meeting a lot of new people through doing these radio shows and podcasts, and people writing with questions and or call in with questions, and same thing. They say it's a relatable story. It's a readable book. It's an easy read. You can read it in, a couple of evenings, and people seem to be resonating with it in terms of, not that exact situation, but I've been through something similar, and it's giving me hope. It's helping me know that I have power too. I'm strong too.
Yes, I like that so much. I'm so happy that you have the courage to do this and share it with everyone. And we're going to hear more about this book, more in real depth, so you guys can understand more so what the book is about and how you can get your hands on a copy by the end of the show. So stay close. We'll be right back, you guys.
Listening to the KGRA digital broadcast station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Hudson Valley, New York.
The Liberator Rocket Heater will heat your home for free. The highly efficient Liberator Rocket Heater has no moving parts. It's safe and strong, constructed of 1/4-inch steel. So like all things made in the USA, it's built to last. Uses any kind of wood, sticks, even scrap in its gravity-fed firebox. And it heats workshops, homes, garages, outbuildings, industrial areas, and barns. Watch the video of this blast furnace stove in action. Visit RocketHeater.com. That's RocketHeater.com.
Every 2 seconds, someone needs blood. Whether it's a natural disaster or one single child suffering from illness, the American Red Cross stands ready to supply blood when it's most needed. But blood is a perishable product. Therefore, it must continuously be replenished. You can safely donate blood every 56 days. The need is constant and patients are waiting. Call your American Red Cross at 1-800-GIVE-LIFE to schedule your life-saving appointment. Please give blood today. Patients are depending on you.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with, you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps stand ready to defend the American way of life. The few, the proud, the Marines.
We are the contact for alternative research topics. The Planet, KGRARadio.com.
You are listening to Soul Wanderings on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, Salt Lake City, Utah, Hudson Valley, New York. Soul Wanderings can be found on all of your favorite listening platforms. So you can check out Spreaker and iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, all of them. All my shows are available for replay on soulwanderings.com. If you're enjoying the show, please share with your friends, share with your best pals. I would love to have more stories shared with the world. Tonight we are visiting with our guest, Rebecca Thompson, and we're talking about a book that she wrote. She's written a couple, but this one in particular at the moment we're talking about Rebecca Rising, How I Found Courage and Self-Love Through Friendship, Coaching, and Conversations with the Moon. And you shared a little bit about the book and why you wrote the book and a little bit about what's in the book. But tell us a little bit or a lot of bit, whatever you decide. Tell us what the book is about and why would someone grab this book? What can it do for them?
Okay. So the book, it picks up, it opens with my now ex-husband, is just about to get his first DUI. And so, I mentioned that I'd, just moved from Rochester, New York with my family to Raleigh, North Carolina. So we've got 3 kids and we've moved to a new state and I'm hoping things are going to get better and, we'll be better financially and relationship wise and that he won't be drinking. And, so I have all these mixed emotions, all the turmoil that we've been through and are still going through but still hopeful that things are going to get better. So I'm starting from that point. And, then this dramatic thing happens. He gets a DUI. And so, that just created kind of an ongoing downward spiral. So I described some of those events in the book. And at the same time, though, I was experiencing this spiritual awakening. And, it really started as just trying to get engaged in my new community and to meet some people and to, just learn my way around this community and build new support systems for myself and my family. And my daughter and I started doing some volunteer work and we met some people that invited us to stuff. And so it kind of chronicles some of these and I try in a slightly humorous way, to describe some of these experiences because I was really coming from a very skeptical point of view. I was an engineer and had no background in anything metaphysical, as I had said before. And so one of the things I think that I can provide is kind of be a bridge for people like myself, that didn't have that kind of background or language or experience or exposure to anything having to do with the metaphysical. And just kind of take it from a skeptic's point of view, how you might see it, and then what you might learn from it. And so I think that's one part of the book that people get. And I do try to make it a little bit humorous. I went to a dowsing class. That's one of the first things that, my youngest daughter went with me on some of these experiences. And, of course she was always cool and composed and, confident, all the things that I was not. And, so we had some of these experiences where I just, what am I doing here? Because I was a skeptic and didn't know what I was getting into, but, I learned something from every experience and I got hooked. And as I said, the first thing I did, I think, was a dowsing class, and I didn't know what that was. I'd never heard of it other than I thought you use a forked stick to find water. What is this? That's all I knew. But this woman that we were doing some volunteer work with invited us to this class at her home, my daughter and I. And so we talked about it and we're like, we don't know what this is, but we like her. She's a nice lady and it could be fun and we'll meet some people. And, worst case, it's going to be a good story later. So we decided to go. And we get there and she starts explaining what it is. And she gets out a set of dowsing rods, that are metal rods that are on handles and they swing freely, and you work with them to find out, you can ask yes or no questions and the rods will work in a certain way, but you have to kind of find your own yes position and your own no position. Well, I'm hearing all this thinking, what the heck? This is crazy. And this is not going to work. First I thought, well, you got to have some kind of superpowers to do this. And I don't have those. I don't have ESP or, I'm not a psychic or any of these things. So I was very concerned about being embarrassed. This isn't going to work and I'm just going to look stupid and all these other people are going to be able to do it and I won't be able to do it. So that was part of it. Another part of me is like, whoa, this is just wacko and I want to get out of here. But being the good, nice person that I am, I took my dowsing rods and went in the corner and followed the instructions that the teacher gave us. And sure enough, when I said, give me a yes, the rods moved in a certain way. And I thought, well, I just bumped them. I just did that. And so I kept repeating it and the rods kept doing it. They kept moving in the same way. So I think in that moment, I really was hooked on the whole idea of energy work. I wouldn't have called it that then. I didn't know, I had no language, but just the fact that energy can move things and that there is something outside ourselves, that is doing this and can be worked with and harnessed and approached. And it just was completely new to me. Mm-hmm. So I try to tell some of those stories with a little humor and coming from the place of the skeptic, and hopefully, helping some of these things to be a little more approachable for people that don't know anything about them. And at the same time, I kind of go through my progression of, I'm stuck in my situation and, poor me, this is how my life is. And then learning to see, well, no, I'm not, and I realized somewhere in my journey that I was telling myself a story that I can't. I was saying I can't a lot. I can't leave. I can't do this. I can't do that. And I learned to tell myself a different story, right? I learned to say I can.
Good.
Maybe I can do that. And what would it be like if I did? And what would happen if I did? So I think that is what people will find by reading the book. They'll find some introduction to a lot of maybe metaphysical things that they may or may not. Even if you are very familiar with all these things, I think you might be amused by some of the descriptions of them that I give as coming from the place that I did. And I think it's also just a journey of unstuckness, right? Going from that place where I really felt stuck into a place where now I can be comfortable with my power and know that I can create the life that I want and be intentional. So I want others to know that they can do the same.
It's so powerful. That is so powerful. When you were writing the book, did you gain a deeper knowledge of yourself?
Oh, I definitely did, AJ. And, as I said, I had been keeping journals, but they were just high level, just the kind of the facts. Here's what I did today, and maybe a little bit about what I learned from it. But as I started writing the book, I did consult the journals quite a lot, but I had to really fill in the blanks a lot, and I had to dig deep in terms of, well, what was I thinking about then, and what was I feeling? And I know I talked to Darlene about this, and what did we say? What did she say? How did she react? And so I had to really dig deep to kind of recreate some scenes, and learned a lot about who I was then and how far I have come. That was quite dramatic for me, and how much I have changed.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine so. It's like you're a completely different person, completely different life.
Yeah, interesting you say that, because I changed my name. Part of it.
I was just about to ask you about that. You did go by Becky, and now you go by Rebecca. Why did you do that?
Yeah, my given name is Rebecca, but I had been called Becky all my life since I was a little girl. And as I started to shift, I just intuitively started to feel like a different person and wanted to honor that. with a name change. And I tell this story in my book too. It was a little embarrassing, but I went to a class at someone's home and I didn't know anyone there, including the teacher. And we went around the circle to say our names, and I said my name was Becca. And I don't know why I said that. It just came out of my mouth, even though at that time I was still going by Becky. And so then, we took a break and everybody's in the kitchen getting tea or something like that. And somebody said to me, oh, what was your name again? And I said, Becky, just not even thinking. And somebody else in the group said, well, which is it, Becky or Becca? You said it was Becca earlier, and I felt like an idiot.
You on the spot.
Yeah, I felt really dumb, and I was like, oh, it's Becky. I kind of backed off. And, but I thought, later I thought, oh my gosh, I sounded like an idiot. I don't know my own name, or what did they think of me? But, it was really a couple years later that I full on said I wanted to be called Rebecca. And it was when I moved to California. I'm still living in North Carolina at the time of that incident. But when I moved across the country, I got divorced, I changed jobs, and I changed my entire belief system. And I just wanted to honor that transformation. And so I decided I was going to be Rebecca. Perfect. And no, I don't think of myself as Becky at all. Never.
That's a different life. That was a completely different life. So I can relate to that. I understand that story. Mm-hmm. You've brought up Darlene quite a bit. And obviously after a 30-plus year friendship, you guys have shared a lot together, and you do talk about her in your book. Tell us about that special friendship.
Yeah, so we've been friends for many years. As I said, we became friends when we were both young moms, and we were working at Kodak as industrial engineers. And we started doing things together outside of work with our kids. And we each had 3, and they're roughly the same ages. And so we worked closely together for quite a few years. And as I mentioned, at some point we took this class in life planning. Kodak allowed us to take lots of training in those days, and we started using what we learned, and we created a life plan for ourselves every year. And it used to be very easy to meet and talk about it because we worked together. When I moved to Raleigh, we didn't know what was going to happen. You move away and you don't know if you're going to be able to keep in touch. And, so we were both crying. I remember we had gone to this park and, to actually review our plan for the last time before I moved, and we were crying, but we made this pact that we were going to speak every week on the phone, and that we were going to try and get together in person twice a year. And we have kept that vow. We have talked to each other every week on the phone, and it's been 16 years. And so the title of our book that we wrote together is Sunday at 8:30, and where that title comes from is that's after some trial and error, that is the time that we landed on, that we have our weekly phone call. So Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, and that's when we get together. And like I said, we've been doing it for years, and we've also gotten together in person most of the time, a couple times a year. So that's worked out great. We go on an annual retreat to create our life plan, and we review what we did the previous year, and then we go through our planning process, and then we also select books that we're going to read together for the coming year. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's just been a really special friendship that I'm so grateful for, because I'm not sure everybody has that in their life, and I've just been really, really privileged and honored to be friends with such a wonderful person as she is. And just having that commitment, I think being intentional about your life is very important, but then also having that kind of accountability partner. Right. I think I get a lot more done because I know that I have to tell her if I didn't do it. And not that there'd be any judgment, but I don't want to let her down. I don't do that.
I love that. I feel like everyone needs a friend like that.
Yeah.
How important, or at least an accountability buddy of some kind, for sure. Speaking of buddies, another one of your main characters in your book is your coaching buddy, Anne. So tell us about her and what she's meant to you.
Yes, this was my friend that I mentioned earlier who explained the goddess Diana to me. And I met her through a coaching certification program that we both took at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. And I took that program because my mom was still living in Pittsburgh, and I was living in Raleigh, and the coaching program took place once a month on a weekend. It would be like a Friday night and all day Saturday for once a month for 6 months or something like that. And so I was coming up there, and I met this woman in the class, and we had lots of occasions. What they would do was pair us up, and we would coach each other quite a lot through this program, or we'd be in small groups coaching each other, and I just got to know her that way. And I just thought she was one of the most interesting people I'd ever met. When I said she was a professor, she was a professor there at Duquesne University at the time. She has since retired, but professor of medieval history and literature, so she's very well versed in mythology and stuff like that. She's a practicing witch. She's a recovering alcoholic. And after we left the program, she asked me if I wanted to continue coaching each other, because we both wanted to get our coaching certification, and you had to, after you took the program, you had to coach other people. You had to accumulate a certain number of hours in order to get your certification. So we agreed to continue doing that, and that's when I had the opportunity. When I first met Diana, I thought, who can I tell that is not going to think I'm crazy? And she was the first person I thought of. So I immediately called her, and she's like, yeah, I got to hear about this. And so we had conversations about it, and she said, yeah, I really think you're dealing with the goddess Diana here. And she's helped me so much just as a recovering alcoholic, understanding that whole, the disease of alcoholism and the implications of it. And she really acted as a sponsor for me through my Al-Anon process, and it was invaluable to have someone like that. She's just been an incredible support to me.
Yeah, one of your earth angels.
Yes, absolutely.
That's so good. You have brought up the moon goddess Diana several times, so we're aware that you've had conversations and connections with Diana, who is actually one of your main primary characters in your book. I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm curious if she really did tell you to go to a Barry Manilow concert. I haven't read that far yet, so I don't know what that means, but I'm curious.
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny thing. As I said, she would wake me up in the night through my dog. I'd go out and talk to her, and we had a lot of conversations like that, walking around the neighborhood in the middle of the night. And she told me, I know what it was. I don't know how to tell this. Barry Manilow was coming to Raleigh, and I wanted to go see him. I wanted to go to the concert. And at this time, my now ex, I was still married to him, but he had moved out of state to South Carolina, and he was commuting from South Carolina, a 4-hour drive back to Raleigh on the weekends to be with me. And so this went on for, a little over a year. But Barry Manilow was coming, and it was going to be on a Saturday night, and I really wanted to go, but my husband at the time did not want to go. And so I didn't I was in this whole, we talked earlier about feeling like you can't do something on your own, your spouse is kind of controlling, doesn't want you to do things on your own, and I didn't feel that I could. And so I kind of just, okay, we won't go. And so I was out talking to Diana in the night, and at this point, this was on a Friday, and at this point, my husband had called and said he wasn't coming home that weekend because he had to work. And so I was going to be home by myself after all. And so I was just getting ready to go back in the house, and I said to Diana, is there any other messages that you want me to have before I go in? And she said, yes, there may still be Barry Manilow tickets available.
Do it. Did you go?
I did. I ran right in the house, and I got on my laptop, and I got on Ticketmaster, and the tickets were super expensive. There were only a couple left, and they were super expensive. And I thought, oh man, I don't know. And then I went on StubHub, and I got a ticket in the 5th row for only $50.
Oh, wow.
And it was awesome. I went by myself, but I made friends with the people that were around me. And then there were people that I knew there. I heard, like 2/3 of the way through the concert, I heard my name being called, and it was somebody from my work. And it turned out to be a really good time. But just kind of funny that you don't expect to have a goddess tell you to go to a Barry Manilow concert.
He must be as magical as the women say. I haven't experienced that myself, but there are rumors. There's something to be said about going out to concerts by yourself. If you guys haven't done it, I highly recommend and encourage you to do so.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, there's something about the music, that you're just, if you love this music and it's inspiring and it makes you feel good, and that same is happening all around you, and the energy of the crowd, all of a sudden you're friends with everybody around you and you're all dancing or just kind of, jumping up and down and singing along. It's a wonderful experience.
Right. You have something in common with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's really neat. It's like dating yourself. Highly recommend it. Date yourself. Get to know yourself through dates.
Yeah, that's true.
It's good medicine.
Yes.
It really is. Just a few minutes before the break. So why don't we take our last break for the night? That's okay with Race. I'm assuming he's paying attention. And when we get back, I want to get more into your coaching abilities and what it is that you do to help others now that you've gone through your experiences. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Awesome. You guys stay close. We'll be right back.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Saucer is the leading innovator of original and authentic UFO-inspired essentials and apparel, symbolizing self-enrichment and advancement. Believe in style and elevate your craft at thesaucerbrand.com.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Cole Bear, filling in for Smokey because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
This is Soul Wanderings Radio.
Welcome back to Soul Wanderings here on KGRARadio.com. We are hanging out with Rebecca Thompson this evening. She is the author of Rebecca Rising, How I Found Courage and Self-Love Through Friendship, Coaching, and Conversations with the Moon, and also co-writer with her lifelong, I could say lifelong, it's been long enough, lifelong friend. The book is called Sunday at 8:30. So good. Lots of magic is happening around you, darling. Mm-hmm. Thank you for being here to share it with us. It's just lovely as can be. I love hearing stories of women who have been through hell and have come out on the other side of it in their true goddess form. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It gets you on this high when you're surrounded by that kind of energy. At least for me, I love it. I could eat it for breakfast. So through your journey, you have brought up several times that you are now a Reiki master, a crystal therapist, you do coaching, and all kinds of things to help others in their healing journey. And we haven't heard much about that, and I really want to get into that because that's the yummy good stuff that's come through and from all of this.
The juicy stuff, right?
Yes, the yummy stuff.
I have learned a little bit about a lot of things over these years of this spiritual journey. And, there's some things that resonate with you and some that don't. And the things that have resonated with me, I have incorporated into my personal spiritual practices, but also into my consulting work and my coaching work. And I said earlier, I used to think that those two aspects of myself could not meet. Mm-hmm. And I have come to find that they can indeed. And it's all part of integration and being who you really are, and just makes you more of a whole person, I think. And I feel more whole that, I'm not hiding any aspects of myself from one group or the other. And I still keep a foot in the corporate world. So I do some consulting, I do some team building and leadership development. And I've had the opportunity to incorporate some of my spiritual tools into that work. We do now guided meditations sometimes at the beginning or at the end of a workshop. I have had the opportunity to use spirit animal conversations in team building workshops, and taking some spirit animal cards and asking people to pick one and talk about how that animal might help them. I have not been able to do that. I need to go actually on the journey. So I use drumming, and actually will focus on the person, listen to the drumming, kind of get into an altered state of consciousness, and actually go on my journey and meet the animal, and then see if that animal has any messages for the individual, and then bring that back to the person.
So technically that would be yes, because you're meditating with their energy and able to communicate with their animal.
Yes, I thought you meant like just look at a person and see their animal.
No, I did. I'm just saying technically it's kind of the same. You're seeing the animal with them just through meditation.
Yes, it's like a longer process. It's not immediate. I don't get immediate hits like that. I've got to kind of get into my zone and,
right.
I
recently had the experience of learning how powerful drum medicine is.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm drum drunk, as they call it. It was a really neat experience, and I'll be making I did this through making an ocean drum, and I'll be making another drum here in September. So I'm super excited about that.
Wow, that's really cool.
It's medicinal. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
Mm-hmm. But with someone just starting out in their journey, like as we conclude, we still have about 10 minutes, but I want to leave the listeners with some more of your goodness before we don't have any more time with you. What are some other tips or tools or whatever that looks like for you that you would offer as a suggestion or recommendation to the listeners if they were in a situation similar to what you went through, like your situation with your spouse, or feeling stuck in a place they feel like they can't get out of?
You know, I think one of the most important things that you can do is to trust yourself. You do have all the answers within you, you know, and I had mentioned earlier, people were always telling me what to do or asking me why I wasn't doing this or that. And you have your own timing. Trust your own sense of timing and trust your own gut and your own heart as far as what to do. And I didn't know how to do that when I started out. And also trust your higher power, you know, and, as I said, a higher power can have many faces. And I've found several that resonate with me, including Diana, but also Mary, Kuan Yin, Archangel Michael, and even Jesus. So, whatever higher power resonates with you, your higher self, you know, whatever you want to call your way of connecting with the divine, nature, you know, the moon, to trust that and, you know, surrendering to that, as hard as that is. I had to really work hard to surrender control. I wanted to control everything and make things happen, but it's kind of, surrendering to divine timing, and just being with that. And so that kind of goes along with slowing down, you know, don't feeling like you have to decide to do anything or decide anything or do anything right away. Take care of yourself, take action when the time feels right. Don't worry about what anyone else thinks you should do or wants you to do. And at the same time, don't go it alone. So find your support systems, your friends, your church, your family, your coaches, you know, but, it doesn't mean you have to do what they tell you to do, but just have them there as a source of support. Mm-hmm. And we talked a lot earlier about loving yourself, and I can't overstress this, you know, but it is a big concept. It may be easy to say. It can be hard when you're used to doing everything for everyone except yourself, and you've been taught that it's selfish to put yourself first. But it's important to take small steps. You know, as we said, baby steps, whether it's, you know, just taking a few minutes to go for a walk or do a little yoga or, you know, eat some chocolate. It's okay. And then learning to say no, you know, and that can be very hard again for people, especially women. But, you know, start to notice what you love to do and do more of that. I spent so much time. I kept saying, I don't know how to have fun. I don't have fun. I just work. And I went through a lot of conversations, just learning about what's fun for me. And it's all about paying attention to what makes you feel good and then do more of that. And then if something makes you feel sad or angry or ashamed or guilty, then don't do that. And it just sounds simple, but it really works.
It does sound simple, and we are so good at complicating it. Just when you initially said how you said to trust yourself, and I think, how do we start? How do we do that? How do we learn to trust ourselves? And then you share all of this other goodness. So those are some good stepping stones to get to know who we are, to learn to trust and love ourselves. Mm-hmm. It's always easier said than done. Definitely have to work on it.
We all do, all the time.
Yeah. What are some final messages or anything else that you would like to leave with us tonight, Rebecca?
I think, you know, I'd say the theme across both my books is about identifying and then choosing what you'd like your life to be like, and then taking steps to achieve it. And my final message would be, you're much stronger than you know. You're much more powerful than you know, and you can create the life you want. So go for it, because you are worth it.
You definitely are worth it. And I'm so thankful that you came to a place in your life where you knew that you were worth it and that you mattered and you fought for yourself.
Thank you so much, AJ. I appreciate that.
Takes a lot of courage.
Yes. Thank you.
So there are several ways that people can get in touch with you if they were interested in your services and or your books. What are the ways that they could do that?
Yes. So my books are available on Amazon. Rebecca Rising, written by Rebecca Thompson, which is me. And then Sunday at 8:30 by Darlene Ryan and Rebecca Thompson. And so those are both available both in paperback and in Kindle version. And I'm currently working on an audio version of Rebecca Rising. So those are all will be available on Amazon. And I also have a website, and it is called www.evolvewithoutlimits.com. And you can go there to learn about my services. As I said, I do offer distance Reiki treatments, spirit animal readings and journeys. I do offer one-on-one coaching. I use the Sunday at 8:30 life planning process, and I'm currently working on an online course that will be available soon, kind of a video program that people can purchase. And so you can learn about that on my website as well. So please come visit me. Again, it's www.evolvewithoutlimits.com.
That is so good. This has been so wonderful getting to know you on a deeper level and knowing that you're creating all of this wonderful goodness out in the world. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for being you.
Well, thank you, AJ. Thank you for everything that you do. And it's been my very great pleasure to be your guest tonight.
Thank you. You have a beautiful night.
Thank you.
What an incredible story, right, everyone? I love hearing these stories from, going through these experiences that are really challenging, where you don't feel like you can get out of them and you just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then through those baby steps she was referring to, you find your greatness. You find that light inside of you, and you realize the power was with you all along. Those are the moments that I live for. That's why I do what I do during the day at Vibes, Mind, Body, Spirit, is because of those aha moments. I love seeing people recognize and remember, come back to their greatness and remember who they are and why they're here. It's such a beautiful experience. If you guys want to know more about Vibes and what I do during the day, make sure you visit vibeznow.com. That's VIBEZNOW.com. I definitely have to talk about them because that was where a big chunk of my heart is. We help so many people here in the area, and soon in the near future, we'll be able to assist people outside of the area. For those of you wondering about the shopping experience, that is going to be updated and redone here soon, and I cannot wait to share with you. Believe me, I will be doing that. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here, Soul Wandering with us tonight. Like I said earlier, Soul Wanderings can be found on all of your listening platforms. So wherever you listen, click in KGRA. You can listen to my show. You can listen to all of the other amazing shows hosted here on the station. There are so many, you guys. I really recommend that you check them out. See what other ones you like besides mine. Then you have something to listen to every night. Soul Wanderings can also be found on all of the main social media platforms, as well as soulwanderings.com. Link to them from there. And you guys, there's also a section where you can send me messages. I love to hear about your experiences. Share with me, share with your friends, share with your family. Let's keep having these amazing conversations. Thanks again for being here with us tonight. Good night, Wanderers.